After this unprecedented, you know, 10 days, maybe an unprecedented 6 months in American politics, this is an election reset. We almost start from square one. We thought in 2021 that Joe Biden would be a one-term president. He said he would be a one-term president, and it would be Harris versus Trump in 2024. We got there just very messily and very late. And now there's all to play for. The Democrats have cleared their first challenge. Their first challenge is to project unity within the party. And very quickly, you saw as soon as Joe Biden withdrew that all parts of the party rallied behind Kamala Harris. All challengers stood aside. Now they have to project unity for America and the threat that Donald Trump poses to that unity through his past actions, including, let's call it what it was, the coup attempt in 2021, through his criminal record, and through what he is proposing to do if he returns to the White House.
Yeah, the contrast couldn't be more stark. And of course, now Donald Trump is the oldest candidate ever to run for president. What are the tactics that you think Kamala Harris needs to follow to really be a very viable candidate?
Well, I mean, Harris has to establish herself, and you're going to hear repeatedly that she failed in 2020. She rose very quickly where she was a favorite for the Democratic nomination, and she sank very quickly with problems in that campaign where she didn't even make it to the first primary in Iowa. So there's the question is, has she learned from that campaigning experience? But also she needs to establish what she has done as vice president as part of this administration. The Biden administration has been very significant for domestic legislation, perhaps the most important since the 60s. But the Biden people deliberately kept her in the background because Biden might run for a second term. Now she's out there. And then you've got to get the election moved from spectacle, from the Trump circus, from the misinformation, from the clickbait and the sound bites to the issues. And I think two are going to be important. I think first are women's rights, reproductive rights, with 2/3 of Americans supporting Roe v. Wade and Trump seen as a threat to it. And secondly, you have to take advantage of Kamala Harris being a former prosecutor to juxtapose that with the convicted felon, the sex abuser, the fraudster, the coup plotter. And you have to really make this about a contest beyond Harris versus Trump, about the future of America. Does it still stand as a system after 250 years?
Yeah. What we have seen, though, Scott, about America is that it's incredibly divided. There is a very strong racist and misogynistic feel in America, the America that Donald Trump has festered. What is the likely attack on her, and how careful does he have to be in terms of how dirty he gets?
Now, I don't think the issue is going to be a woman becoming president. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016, even if she lost the Electoral College, and there are women in both the Republican and Democratic parties. I think the race element is there. But I think the Republicans, the Trumpists, have already shown you what they will do. In the hours after Biden withdrew, they did bring up two issues with misinformation, I will say, but they brought up the economy and immigration. And they're going to falsely say that there's an inflation crisis. In fact, it's dropped in the past 2 years. And they're going to say millions of people are crossing the border. Again, migration's dropped, and you don't have terrorists crossing into the U.S. every day. But that might stick. What they're also doing, though, is, and I think this might backfire, is going after Kamala Harris personally and as a woman. Donald Trump immediately started to try to call her Laughing Kamala, that insult politics he plays. And if you're a woman, and I've had women say this to me, we get attacked for the way we look, the way we act. Why is he doing this? And then he called her nuts and he called her crazy. Again, some of your women viewers may recognize men saying that to them. If you're talking about swing voters, those undecideds being vital, and if you recognize that women decided the 2020 election in the end, does Trump's attack politics on Kamala Harris really the way to play this for November? Or does it backfire where he might appeal to his base, but he might lose the rest of America, or at least a large portion of it?
Yeah. Let's switch, Scott, to the appearance of the director of the US Secret Service. She was really obliterated in that appearance, but she's insisting that she stays there despite admitting that it was the agency's most significant operational failure. Can she survive this?
I don't think the position is tenable, and I don't think it's tenable because the leaders on that committee, House committee, it was both Republicans and Democrat. It was Jamie Raskin who led the impeachment of Donald Trump. They both called for her to step aside. It's bipartisan. They call step aside. Beyond that, there was a threat, and this is being whipped up by the Trumpists, which is to attack the Secret Service itself, because the Secret Service is part of the Department of Justice, and they want to tear down the Justice Department for other reasons. They want to put Trump above the law. So I think the political motives made this a bit suspect in going after the Secret Service, but the appearance by the head and the inability to explain away what was a serious, serious failure to protect a presidential candidate, no, I think she'll have to go.
Yeah. One of the biggest issues for Joe Biden has been Israel and the Gaza conflict. It has been a tricky one for him to manage. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, is there now. Do you think we're going to see any shift in US support for Israel? And how much is it going to be a difficult issue for Kamala Harris to deal with?
Well, you're going to see an important political signal from Kamala Harris, which is she will meet Netanyahu privately, one-on-one, but she will not attend his address to both houses of Congress. A pre-existing engagement, you understand. That keeps Harris at a bit of a distance from Netanyahu, and Harris had distanced herself a bit from Biden in recent months. There is that U.S. support for Israel, but Harris was making an emphasis on we need to protect Palestinian civilians in Gaza as well. There will be, I think, a big question on her almost immediately, which is whether she will call out Israel's mass killings in a more forceful way than Biden has done. I think across the U.S., I don't think the Gaza issue is decisive, but it could be decisive in Michigan, which is a swing state. So I think the Democrats and Harris will pay attention to that.
Yeah. Great, as always, to chat and get your analysis. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Bev.